This is the Astros Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Houston Astros, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So basically take exactly what we did over this past weekend, which was celebrate a victory, a sweep of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and flip it. And that is exactly what's just happened in terms of the emotions over the last 3 days. The Astros get swept by the Cleveland Guardians at home, of all places, as well. In a rough 3 days after a brilliant trip that saw the Astros go 5-1 on it, including that sweep of the Dodgers, to come right back home and not really have anything going offensively to win baseball games. Very, very weird last 3 days for the Houston Astros. Hello and welcome tonight to the Locked On Astros Postcast. I wish this was after a win. I don't like doing this, after losses, but it happens. Appreciate you guys watching if you are live or later on. You can, of course, get this show anywhere that you get your podcast. Go and search Locked On Astros. You have this show in the Locked On Astros Daily Podcast, which is available. We've got a lot of things to get through tonight, including, of course, the overall loss. Walter settling in as the game moved on. Jake Myers leaving the game before he even, started the game. And then the big series coming up this weekend against the Rangers before the Astros head off to the All-Star break. What's the number one thing from this one that you're going to be walking away talking about?
This is what you'll be talking about.
Again, it's the offense. You're not going to be perfect every day. I get that. The last couple of days, they have been downright atrocious with runners in scoring position. They were like 2 for 21 last night, and tonight they're 1 for 8. 1 for 8. They didn't scatter a lot of hits in the game. They did have 6, same amount as Cleveland. The difference is that Cleveland hit the ball over the fence tonight. The Astros did not. Cleveland, of course, hit the ball over the fence early against the Astros, then loaded the bases late and got a big swing for a 2-run single there to turns out what was the game winner. If Bennett Sousa doesn't come in there for a guy who's been pretty nails this season and get himself into trouble, then the Astros are probably getting through there without or with the game still being, or if eventually being 2-2, if it played out the same way in the 8th inning. This is just the second time this season that the Astros have been swept. First time was back in April, their very first homestand. It was the second series against the San Francisco Giants. I said it last night, I'm going to say it again. It sucks. When you lose games like this, don't overdo it. Don't overpanic. If they go into this weekend against the Rangers and drop 2 out of 3 or, get swept in that series, all right, we'll be ticked off and we'll have a conversation about being concerned about maybe they're going in the wrong direction. It sucks. Let this one go by today. Move on from it. It is what it is. Mariners tonight, by the way, they lost to the Yankees 9-6. As we are doing this show, Rangers and Angels are tied in the 3rd. So it doesn't matter who you're rooting for there. It doesn't really matter at all. The Astros large lead in the American League West is going to stay the same. It'll be double-digit games over the Angels and Rangers, and it'll be 6.5 games over the Mariners. So there's that. Again, perfect world. Astros taking care of business and not dropping 3 straight. There was one thing from the game tonight that was encouraging. Now, it was not encouraging in the first. Was Brandon Walter came out, gave up a couple of jacks back-to-back there in that very first inning to Martinez, who hit the grand slam last night, and then Jose Ramirez, who hit a homer in every single game in the series. Guy was a menace. And I am going to have to take – hold on. Sorry, I couldn't hit the mute button fast enough. I tried. I was on a different screen trying to pull up stats. You had to listen to me sneeze. I apologize. It just came on quick. Ramirez, though, was a monster. He, by the way, if you missed that news, sitting out the All-Star game, and that has allowed Isaac Paredes to slide in and go ahead and make his second consecutive All-Star game, and first with the Astros, of course. So congrats to him. The Astros will have 4 representatives. Hunter Brown will not pitch in the game, for those of you that were wondering. He is going to pitch, it sounds like Sunday, because he was replaced earlier today by Joe Ryan of the Minnesota Twins. So in all likelihood, Hunter Brown's going to start the finale of the series against the Rangers this weekend. The Astros are going for it. They're putting their best dogs out there. And look, that's what this team has to do. You're talking about Brandon Walter kind of in a roundabout way here. You know, when they have guys like Brandon Walter on the mound, they just have to go 500 in those games that those other guys pitch. And then they just have to go feast when Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez pitch. But Walter tonight, I've said it before, I've been a fan of the stuff that I've seen. I love how he fills up the strike zone. I love that his sweeper has been incredibly unhittable. He takes a loss tonight, which is a really hard, tough loss to take, because 6 innings, 2 runs, 2 hits, 7 strikeouts, no walks. And the only blemishes, again, the 2 hits were home runs. Other than that, I mean, the guy set down, I think, at one point 15 in a row, or it was 18, whatever it was to finish the game. Or, yeah, 15 in a row to finish the game. That was great. They need him to keep pitching that way. Hopefully he will keep pitching that way. Because I think of all the guys that they have, and I got to give credit to Gusto the other day. He was great in Los Angeles against the Dodgers. I think Walter gives me the most confidence overall. Now, he is susceptible to giving up the long ball because he doesn't throw incredibly hard. I mean, everybody's susceptible to giving up the long ball, but he's a guy that if he leaves a, slower pitch over the plate, things happen. But it was good to see him settle in. The Astros needed to see him settle in tonight. He did just that, and here you go. There was some bad news from this one. We'll get to that here in a second. We'll also take a look at the series that is ahead for the Astros, because even though it's a team that's down there, it's a rival. You want to keep them down where they're at. It's going to be a big weekend at the ballpark in downtown Houston, Texas, where the Astros will be looking to bounce back. We'll talk about that here in a brief second on the Locked On Astros Postcast. But first, though, I need to remind you guys about OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an emergency, a service emergency, like a pipe burst. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait? No. You called the next one. That's why having a reliable business line is so important. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your computer or your phone. Did you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? Well, OpenPhone solved that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more, who's handling this? And the AI agent handles the after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Astros Postcast listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's openphone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone will port them over and no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. And one final message before we get back to our discussion on the Astros loss tonight. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I'm using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and even makes regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Astros losers tonight to the Guardians, swept out after sweeping the Dodgers over the weekend. Man, oh man, that stinks. You know, it does happen. We can say that. Do have to acknowledge it. Every team in this sport is capable of being swept. And even a team that's been riding really high from June until this point, even they are capable, yes, of being swept. And we just saw it at the hands of the Cleveland Guardians. The bad news from before the game even started tonight was Jake Myers. Been out with calf tightness. Left the game before the game started. And, well, I think there's reasons to be worried about it. You know, whenever you see an athlete these days with calf issues on the field, my mind always immediately goes to Achilles tendon. Not putting that on him. Hopefully it's not that, but it's something that always pops into my mind. We just saw it in the NBA Finals. Tyrese Halliburton was, dealing with calf stuff, calf this, calf that, and what do you know? He goes out there and plays through a calf and pops his Achilles. So, yeah, I went there in my head. Hopefully it's not that. Because, look, the Astros, they have to have Jake Myers. This is a team that is so incredibly beat up. And this is also a team that lacks outfielders. They do. They've lost Jordan. They've lost Jacob Melton this year. Chas McCormick's been down hurt. I mean, we're talking about on a nightly basis right now, they've been playing Taylor Trammell. You could always slide Dubon back out there. They had Zach DeZenzo out there playing left field some. But they've lost so many bodies. They are on a AAA run with players. And there's one thing that those AAA players can do is field. And, when they come up here, they do a pretty good job of, defensive baseball. But those guys consistently aren't going to hit the way that these guys are. And Jake Myers has transformed himself this year into a reliable bat. You'd love to see a little more pop if I was being greedy. I mean, I think he's only hit, 3 home runs this year, so it's not like he's slugging much. But you give me Jake Myers hitting over 300, I'll take it every day of the week. I don't care about the pop. But losing him would be a significant blow defensively. His defensive range and his command of center. He is an exceptionally intelligent center fielder that plays that way. Okay, you can't do that right now. You're going to have to stop. One of my dogs in another room has decided to start barking in the middle of the live show. So the one that always sits in here, who's always quiet if you watch the show and never says anything, has just decided that he needs to start crying now. You can't do that. But yes, losing Jake Myers would be a significant blow defensively and offensively. It's just the truth, which is wild to think. And look, the Astros, they're creeping up on the deadline. Of course, with the MLB draft coming up, teams will probably really start to kick into gear, trade deadline stuff after the break. I think that the Astros, looking at things right now, could absolutely use an outfielder, preferably a left-handed hitting outfielder. There was a guy that's going to go on the market here soon because he got designated for assignment today by the Yankees, DJ LeMahieu. I don't know if the Astros are going to be interested in him at all. I know in the past this was a different regime, the James Click regime. I know this for a fact, tried to sign him. But you could pick him up, I guess, and you could play him at second base, play Altuve in the outfield. They got to figure something out. They got to get a couple bats. They do. They got to figure out a way to get a couple bats. And they've played themselves into this spot where they owe it to this team for what they've accomplished so far this year to get reinforcements. You can't go to the trade deadline and do nothing. You just can't. In this era where they're at, I know that they're retooling the farm system and everything. You don't need to make big, over-the-top, crazy trades, but they got to do something to reinforce this major league roster in some spots. And a couple of bats is going to be definitely a place where they're going to have to think about it. Now, they need the bats to show back up this weekend. They're going to play the Rangers this weekend at the ballpark in downtown Houston, Texas. I just can't get around to calling it what it is. You're going to get McCullers on Friday against Jack Leiter. It's going to be a pitching series. Jack Leiter and McCullers on Friday. Saturday is expected to be DeGrom versus Fromber. And then Sunday is expected to be Evaldi versus Hunter Brown. But the Rangers aren't good. Like, there's no denying they're not a good baseball team based on their results this year. They can't hit. But they can pitch. You just go look at runs allowed this year. They've given up fewer runs than the Astros. The Astros have given up 346. The Rangers have given up 322. You don't want to give them a spark going into the All-Star break. Astros got to take 2 or 3 this weekend. They got to find a way. They beat good teams a lot recently. They can beat a team that can't score. They can outscore a team that can't score compared to them. Runs on the season, Astros are at 409. Rangers have scored just 358 so far this year. So there's that. Of course, when the game wraps up Friday night, you'll come right back here to this channel. As soon as the game ends, we will, of course, be right here. Talk it out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday night. We'll talk Friday night after Astros and Rangers. Locked on Astros Postcast.